Welcome back to the Percussion Performance video series. Today we're looking at concert bass drum technique. Typically, the drum itself is suspended to allow the drum to resonate. The drum is angled so that I can play the instrument with my right hand, and my music stand would be directly in front of me so that I can see the conductor, my music, and I can play the instrument. Now this is a larger drum, so we'll require a slightly larger mallet to play it. This bass drum mallet, as you can see, is pretty large, felt covered head, a larger handle. The playing area for the bass drum is generally slightly off center. Now it depends on the music. If you want more of an impact for the music, you would play directly center. If not, the general playing area is just slightly off center, which gives you more resonance of the drum. It's best to play the bass drum with a smooth movement, and you'll be using more of your arm rather than just wrist in the stroke. The bass drum, of course, just like the other instruments, can be played at different dynamic levels according to the music. So a softer note might be something like, which requires a lot less height from the stroke, whereas a louder note would require a larger or a higher stroke. Now, the bass drum can ring indefinitely, but it's best to muffle the bass drum after you play your note. Now, the notation that you'll find for music for bass drum will vary. You might have whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and so on. So a whole note would, of course, in 4/4 time get 4 beats. A half note and a quarter note. Now notice what I was doing after each of those notes. I would muffle the drum so that it doesn't continue to ring. I can use my fingertips and even the mallet head itself to help muffle the drum. So here's a whole note for 4 counts, and then I muffle. Now you don't want to muffle suddenly, or that produces a lot of sound on the drum. Try to make your muffling gradual and smooth. Another very effective way to muffle the bass drum is to use your knee and your right hand on the resonant head. If your bass drum is equipped with a footstool, or if you have some other object to raise your leg so that you can use your knee for muffling, try that method. I've changed the angle of the bass drum slightly so that I can use my knee to muffle and still play with my right hand, and my left hand can actually muffle the resonant side head of the drum. So now I can use my knee, my left hand, and even the head of the mallet to help muffle the drum. Another great method to muffle the bass drum, especially when you have shorter notes and you want to articulate the notes, is to use a towel laid over the top of the bass drum. So you would place your towel just over part of the top, and for shorter notes where you want to articulate between the notes, you may have a pair of smaller bass drum beaters. And now with a towel muffling the top, you'll have much more muffling and much more control, much more articulation of the notes. When you play bass drum, try out these 3 muffling techniques using the fingertips of the left hand, the head of the mallet. You can also use your knee and your left hand on the resonant head to help muffle. And finally, the towel laid over the top of the bass drum on the batter head. Now we'll look at technique for crash cymbals, also known as hand cymbals. And as the name suggests, these cymbals are played by hand. The first thing to keep in mind is to have these cymbals ready to play in a cymbal holder, and if one's not available, you can always use a table covered with a towel, and that'll do the job perfectly. Holding the cymbals is different in concert percussion than it is for marching percussion. In marching band, you have your hand inside the straps, whereas in concert percussion, you want to have the straps inside your hand, or your hand will surround the strap. You take 4 fingers and put them around the strap, as close to the bell of the cymbal as possible, and you take your thumb and you lay it directly across and kind of pinch the strap like this. You do the same with the right hand, 4 fingers across, and the thumb on top. So the cymbals are held just like that. The reason that you want to use concert grip on the cymbals rather than marching grip is that if you have other parts in the song that you're playing, you want to be able to quickly put the cymbals down and go to that next part. The playing position for the cymbals is directly in front of the body. To play the cymbals, the general technique is to have the top edge of your left cymbal first come in contact with your right cymbal. Some common errors that happen during play are to play the cymbals together or even to slide the cymbals. Here's what these errors would sound like. That last one in particular, the slide, would give you a really bad air pocket effect. Depending on the dynamic level of the crash, the space between the cymbals should match. So for a soft crash or piano, I would have just a little space in between the cymbals. Medium or mezzo forte. And forte or loud, I would give myself a little more space. Now to muffle the cymbals, I'm using the torso of my body so that after the length of the note, I can muffle gradually against my torso. For shorter and more staccato notes, I would muffle a little quicker. After the crash, you want to set the cymbals down quietly, and again, that's where the towel will help. Thank you for watching. In our next episode, we'll look at technique for triangle, tambourine, and suspended cymbal.